What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the second part in our class breakdown series. We started the week off looking at the tech class, and now we're going to move over and take a look at the mutant class, which let me get everything sorted here real quick from rank top to bottom. Okay, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be placing all of the mutant characters into one of three tiers: bottom, mid, and top tier. Which the mutant class actually has a lot of characters that are in the mid tier that probably would make top tier over in Cosmic and Science, and even some of these bottom tier champs in mutant would probably make mid tier in a couple of the other classes, which is to say that the mutant class is just full of very solid champs, so do take that all into consideration. Really, the purpose for the tier is to be able to look at your roster and, okay, if you've got a couple of characters in the top tier, those are the ones that you want to focus on putting your resources into. Once you have done that and you've taken them as far as you can, that's when you kind of look back at your mid-tier and your bottom-tier champs and then make a decision on who you need to rank up based upon what your needs are. So we will start. Oh, and I do want to mention, we will go then at the very end of this and look at who is worth using a Mutant Awakening Stone on, and then also who is worth ranking up Unduped. So let's get started in the bottom tier here for the Mutant class. And there's a couple here that I think we probably can all agree upon. Colossus, Magneto Marvel Now, which is the white one right here. Magneto Marvel Now, Colossus, and then also Deadpool X-Force. Deadpool X-Force is a large disappointment to me. He's not interesting to play, has no real utility, not a good defender, not a good attacker, just kind of blah. But yeah, Colossus, Magneto Marvel Now, Deadpool, I think round out the top, or excuse me, the bottom three. The bottom of the bottom tier in the mutant class. These next couple of characters, do keep in mind, as I mentioned, there's a lot of very solid champs in the mutant class. So even though these might be more solid champs in the overall gameplay, when it comes to the mutant class itself, I think they kind of sit towards the bottom. Old Man Logan, I've got at the bottom tier as well. I've got Gambit, who I love Gambit, but unfortunately just doesn't really have any solid utility to him. Has decent damage, but his gameplay, his style's a little bit quirky. Good stun, but yeah, he's in the bottom tier, unfortunately. And then I've got Red Magneto, and then I've got both of the Cyclops twins, which that is the blue Cyclops and the red Cyclops as you see them there. Now I know that Red Magneto and then also the Cyclops, especially as 5-star characters, they are decent defenders. I know we see Cyclops a lot on that unblockable S1 Thorns node over on the right side on Alliance War on offense. But I think when you're building, when you're looking at your roster and you're trying to build your champ base, you probably should prioritize your AQ team first, followed by your Alliance War offense. And unfortunately, Classic Magneto and Cyclops don't really fit either of those descriptions. Cyclops does decent amount of damage, but there are a lot of other champs in the mutant class further up the tiering that do equal damage, or if not that, much more, which is kind of why they fall down into the bottom tier for me. Now, as far as the mid tier goes, mid tier's got a lot of interesting characters. Cable, I think, is a very solid mid tier champ. I think he needs to be awakened to really fully realize his abilities. But he's got Degeneration from his heavy, Degeneration that he places when he gets a bleed effect on him, so he makes a decent defender. He's got a chance to regen, chance to power gain. I skipped it right there, but the S2 also has 90% ability reduction for 11 seconds, which when you pair that, if he's getting a power gain, 11 seconds is a long time with a power gain. If you have it up, so basically you can get back to an S2 fairly quickly. Damage output is a little low, but overall a pretty solid champ. Storm, I've got Storm in the mid tier. Where's my 4-star Storm, man? I know she's here somewhere. There she is. Storm does need to be awakened to really get the good damage output. But yeah, as a 5-star character, rank 4, I've seen people clear Labyrinth of Legends with her. I've seen people do Legends run with her. Legend runs with her, I should say, just because her damage output is that good. Plus, very strong character to have as part of a synergy team in the mutant class. Deadpool, classic Deadpool. Where's he at? I've got a red Deadpool 3-star around here. Well, there's my 2-star. Yeah, there he is right there. Which I know that he is not a very common character as a 4-star. He's only come around in a special arena twice. So there's a very few select number of people that have him as a 4-star. But he definitely makes my mid-tier just because of his very good regen. When he drops below 20%, it's kind of like Arc Overload with Iron Man. He triggers a regeneration, but when you have him awaken, he has a passive regen that is always ticking away, and that regen, the regen is linked to his power meter like Wolverine. So the higher his power meter is, the more regen he's getting. And when you've got that strong a regen, you can get yourself through a lot of content, even if your damage output is not that good, because you can keep yourself alive. Cable, Storm, Classic Deadpool. And then for me, Beast and PSYLOKKE. Really, I had to debate on this one a little bit. I think, like I mentioned, maybe in another class, Beast and PSYLOKKE, I think might make top tier. Could be debated, but I think in the Mutant class, I think that they are in the mid tier. PSYLOKKE, I think a lot of people are probably still confused on how best to use her. Very, very good offensive-based character for Alliance War. She has the ability to completely power lock an enemy outside of power gain. I think power gains still give them some power. But as far as Mystic Dispersion champs, so like if you're running up against a Mystic Dispersion Magic or Juggernaut, you can completely lock them down, not feeding them any power. You can build up your side charges and then kind of release all of those in one big massive hit to kind of end the fight. She does take a little bit of practice, but is a very, very strong offensive-based character for Alliance War for dealing with Mystic Dispersion champs. And then Beast, again, is another character that can be very confusing. His chain combo, if you just look at it, it's like this giant wall of text. But he's got very good offensive abilities, especially in his freestyle. Chain combo, if you're using that right. Good bleeds, good passive damage from freestyle. His acrobatic form increases his block proficiency. Also greatly reduces the amount of power the enemy is gaining when they're getting hit. So you've got good damage, good power control, fun character to play, a little bit complex. If you're confused on how to use him, go check out my Beast review on the channel. But again, debatable, I guess. Top tier maybe in another class, but for the Mutant class, a very, very strong mid-tier champ. And then in the top tier, I'll start with the two characters that I don't have as 4 stars yet, and that is Archangel. Archangel, one of the best offensive-based characters in the game right now. When you combine that with his Awakened ability, which he reduces the ability, or excuse me, he reduces the enemy's offensive ability accuracy, plus blocking all regeneration on the target. This makes him perfectly suited to deal with magic, as far as not allowing her to trigger Limbo by reducing her ability accuracy, and also completely blocking the regeneration that she would get back. He's overall just a really cool character, but thankfully he's got a lot of utility and damage built into him as well. ICEMAN, arguably probably a top 5 champ in the game right now, so obviously he makes my top tier list here in the Mutant class. What can you say about him, man? He's got everything. He is Incinerate immune, he's Bleed immune, he's Poison immune. When he's Awakened, puts a Cold Snap on the enemy when the fight starts, which does damage they can't get around, makes him an excellent defender. He's Ice Armor, doesn't allow him to take more than 5% damage from an attack, which means you can push enemies, even on power gain nodes, you can push them right into an S3. You're going to be taking very, very little damage from that. His Awakened ability reduces the cooldown to get Ice Armor again by 3 seconds. When Cold Snap is on the enemy, which you can place with the S1, it doesn't allow them to evade your attacks, so he's an excellent offensive-based character when you're fighting Spider-Man or you're fighting Nightcrawler. Good defender, good offensive character, really, really solid champ. So yeah, those are the two I don't have as 4-star characters. Then the rest I do. I've got Nightcrawler up here. Nightcrawler's got a lot of things about him. Outside of just being a good defender, his prestige is really, really high. His damage output, I think, is greatly underrated. If you pair him with a Mutant team and push him over into a swashbuckling form, you can clear through quest, event quest, story quest. You can clear through all that stuff really, really quickly. Plus, like I said, he is a very, very good defender. Definitely, I think, sitting in top tier in the Mutant class. And then Wolverine and X-23, both are very, very similar champs in a way. Wolverine pushes more towards being able to regen and keeping himself alive, whereas X-23 is more of an offensive-based character, moving towards higher burst damage with a little bit of regen. So it really depends upon what you need in your roster. I think of the two, I prefer to have the extra regen from Wolverine. You wouldn't believe the number of times I've used him in map 6 and gone in with very little health Play conservatively. You will get several regens during the fight, and you may start with 1500 health, and you may end the fight, you know, with completely full health. So he's saved me a lot of units, not having to spend on potions and revives. I use him against degeneration nodes in map 6. You can use him against electros on defense in AW, or electros in map 6 as well. Very solid champ. X23 is a lot of fun to play. Very much am looking forward to seeing some gameplay footage with her as a 5-star character. She does not necessarily need to be awakened, which I guess I'll get into that later. But her damage output does increase, but even unawakened, her damage output is still really good. Plus, you know, her regeneration, when you compare it to Wolverine, is not nearly as good, but still, if you're only taking chip damage from parrying and block, it's still a good regen. And then finally, for me, in top tier, I do have Rogue, which this is another one that I debated a little bit, but really ultimately, I have used her now several times in map 6, and she is a solid champ. I think the higher you have her awakened ability, the higher the chances for you to crit on those regens and on your S2 power steal. I think the better champ she becomes. But overall, very solid champ. Being able to power steal and regen, those are two of the top things in the game. Her damage output, you could argue, was a little bit low, but I think if you're spamming the S2 and you're power gaining, power stealing, you can very easily chain a bunch of S2s together. And her S2 does actually hit pretty hard. So maybe if you don't have a Wolverine for the regen, if you've got an Awakened Rogue, I would say she's a very solid champ to take up to 550, and I've got her in my top tier. So just as a quick recap, top tier, we've got Archangel, Iceman, Wolverine, X23, Nightcrawler, and Rogue in no particular order. Now, as far as characters that are good unduped, I would say Nightcrawler kind of sits at the top for me. If you look at his awakened ability actually allows him to switch forms quicker, and you actually don't want that. You want him to be able to stay in his Neophim form, which is the form that allows him to evade more often and also gain an evasion with the S1. So having him not being able to switch back and forth as easily makes him a better defender. So he's really good unduped. I think Wolverine and X23, I know I was just talking about them, but I think they're still solid champs, even unawakened. My PSYLOCKE is unawakened. I've still used her effectively in Alliance Wars many, many times. Is there anybody else in here that I want to mention? Oh, Iceman. Again, his awakened ability does help him greatly, but still you've got triple immunity. You've still got the ability to place Cold Snap with the S1. Still have the Ice Armor. Very, very solid champ unawakened. Archangel still does really good damage output unawakened. So yeah, I think did I just list everybody in the top tier? Yeah, they're good. They're good unawakened. They're good awakened. I guess that's just kind of the name of the game. And then finally, characters that I would invest in awakening a Mutant Awakening Stone on. I would put it into Iceman. I would put it into Archangel. I would put it into Wolverine for sure. If you already have those characters, somebody like Beast and Rogue, both of them greatly benefit from being awakened. Also, Cable, I think, becomes considerably better when he is awakened. So yeah, there are actually several champs there. I would prioritize those that are in the top tier first. But again, if you've got those awakened, there's several mid-tier champs in Cable, Beast, that are good and worth using a Mutant Awakening Stone on. I think for me overall, if I'm going to rank the mutant characters, I think it's very similar to what we see in the tech class at 1 and 1A between Vision and Spider-Man Stark Enhanced. It's a similar story here in Mutant. I think Iceman and I think Wolverine, depending upon your particular roster, would probably be the deciding factor on which one you should take up. But I think both of them are right there at the top. I think the third spot. I think if you've got Wolverine already, I think the third spot is probably Archangel, then followed by X23. The fifth spot is really, again, debatable between Nightcrawler and Rogue. It just depends upon what you need. But I think clearly the top three for me are Wolverine, Iceman, and Archangel right now. And with that, it's going to wrap up the Mutant class breakdown. I will follow this one up with a skill class next. That'll come out in a couple of days. Hope this has helped you make some decisions if you're looking on trying to figure out who you should be ranking up in the Mutant class. If you have any further questions, though, as always, please leave those down in the comment section below. Link to my Twitter is in the description. And I do realize I didn't talk about generic awakening stones. That will be coming once we do the full class breakdown. We'll go back and show who you can use the generic awakening stones on. Alright guys, as always, I appreciate the support. Have a great day. I'll see y'all in the next video.